All right, we're back.
Hi, friend. We're trying out something new today. These headphones,
Definitely new.
so we can hear ourselves.
Yeah.
Exactly how we hear ourselves if we're like watching back. So it's a little bit different.
It is. Honestly, we're doing it because we saw Tim Ross do it
Yeah.
on his podcast, and so we figured, why not? Let's try it.
By the way, if you don't watch his podcasts, you're missing out.
Mm-hmm.
Like they're so good.
Yeah, I love it because he also is not. He says on there he's not a Christian podcast. Yeah, and so, but he talks about Christian things.
Wow.
So it's pretty cool because he'll talk about stuff that's really controversial and yet bring his perspective. And what I love about him is he's very like honest and open. Like if you don't like it, you don't have to watch it. You can skip this one, like, because that's really how we should be.
Yeah.
Is this is my perspective. This is what I believe. But it doesn't mean we always have to agree on everything. There's some things on there I don't necessarily agree with 100% with him. Still love the dude.
Yeah.
Still think he brings so much value, to what he shares. So,
well, I think that's what we're missing nowadays is the different perspectives.
Yep.
And we have to learn to just be like, okay, with people not seeing it the way we do.
It blows my mind the amount of people when you start going on social media and they're like so upset because so and so isn't saying what they want them to say. So and so isn't posting what they want them to post. So and so isn't, you know what I mean? Like, I thought I liked this preacher, but they just said this. Like, oh, guess we're done. Can't listen to him anymore. It's like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel like it's like if the fundamentals are there, we are not going to see it eye to eye with everybody. I mean, I don't see eye to eye with my husband on everything, and it's like, we're still married. Hello.
Right.
You know what I mean?
Totally.
So,
and that's actually the beautiful thing about it.
It is.
Right? That's why, we I think we might have said this before, but when you agree with people around you on every single thing, it would actually be a red flag for me. That's what you would consider a cult.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
Like it's actually good for other people to bring in perspective and just get you to thinking, like, that's what expands your mind. Like, I've never thought about it that way. I don't know if I agree with that quite yet. Or maybe I won't. But that's a pretty cool perspective.
Yeah.
I could see how you would think that way. I could see that. Again, yeah, it all goes back to, okay, what's the foundation? We have our foundation, right? Like if you're a Christian, foundation is going to be the Bible, period. But from that, there's many things that are not black and white in the Bible.
Yeah, 100%.
And that's where it's like, well, this is what my experience is and why I think the way I think. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, and that's a good thing you pointed out. It's so funny. We weren't even planning on talking about this, but whatever.
Yeah.
The way we are brought up will shape a lot of our thinking. So our perspectives will be shaped around the way we grew up, where we grew up, how we grew up, so it's like, that's what the cool thing is that when you get to hear everybody's story, it's going to be different. And and we get to pour into each other, right? So like, if I grew up a certain way and that's all I'm used to, well, I come around somebody who's different and my mind is open to other possibilities, to other ways of thinking, so it's like, yeah,
well, and like some of the things you might, hear and you're like, I haven't really actually taken time to think about that for myself.
Yeah.
Because I've always been told A, B, and C.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so then it's like, well, I don't know. Let me think about that. Let me dig into scripture. Let me see what God's telling me. And then it might match, it might not.
Yeah.
So yeah. Welcome to the podcast. No, but really, we're super thankful you guys are listening and watching.
Yeah.
We wanted to jump on. So our plan was actually to jump on, and this is kind of distracting. Our plan was to jump on and talk about women who preach. Can women preach? Part 2.
Yeah.
And we asked for comments. We asked for feedback. We even did a anonymous link a couple times on social media, and we got 0 people that had any questions. So we're going to take that as, wow, we were so clear. on the last podcast, we're so
Yeah.
clear on, our stand and really what the Bible says about it.
Mhm.
Here's the cool thing, though. We got done. We released the podcast, and there was, I think, 2 other people
Yeah.
that same week that came out with podcasts on women preaching,
Mhm.
which was so cool
It was really cool.
because their perspective was the same,
Mhm.
and their reasoning, their
Yeah.
whys,
Yeah.
what they grabbed from the Bible of what it said
Mhm.
was, I mean, honestly, it
Yeah.
was like exactly what we were saying.
Yeah. I think it was just cool for me to see because I mean
Mhm.
we're not Bible scholars by
Mhm.
any means, so it's like we just had to solely rely on the scripture and just having revelation from the Holy Spirit, so it was really cool to see that line up
Mhm.
with people who have been in ministry and where they stand, that they are solid Christians,
Yes.
so that was really cool. And I honestly I loved it because I've never researched this topic for
Mhm.
myself. Like I've always watched other people. So for me it was just so cool
Yeah.
to do the research for myself because now I'm like, nobody can tell me otherwise,
Yeah.
So that was really cool too.
Yes.
To just dig in and
Totally. So if you do have a feedback, and
Yeah.
maybe you didn't see our social media post, but you have something you want to say, please reach
Yeah.
out, let us know.
Mhm.
And we could do a part 2 if we need to.
Yeah.
But honestly, we didn't want to waste more time, just kind
Yeah.
of saying the same thing over without
Mhm.
any kind of, this is where they're coming from.
Yeah, exactly.
So
Yeah, so that's that.
that's that.
So it's been a while since we've been on here.
It has. Mhm. Here's the thing. We are moms. We are wives.
Mhm.
We have, work that we do.
Yeah.
And so, our days are pretty full.
Mhm.
And as much as we, well, also there was like sicknesses that happened,
A lot.
birthdays, you know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
it just, life got really busy. And so we did not want to keep pushing it off though.
Yeah.
So we're like, we're just
Yeah.
going to schedule and come record and just kind of see what happens. But within the time that we've, the last episode to this episode, God's obviously been working.
Mhm.
And so even in that short
Yeah.
amount of time, we have a couple updates.
Yeah.
Yeah. I don't know if all our viewers know.
Oh. Oh, well.
You are with child.
Yes, I am. I am. We're so excited.
Yeah.
I'm 20 weeks pregnant.
Mhm.
We're having a baby boy. It's been
Yay.
confirmed. Yeah, we're so happy. This is, if you don't know, this is our baby number 5, and we have 4 boys now. And well, this is our 4th boy, and then we have 1 little girl. So we're super excited. It's so funny because we did blood test, and this is the first time I've ever done that. I've always I'll just wait till 20 weeks, So we did the blood work, and my mom, she was sure they got it wrong. That's how badly she wanted a granddaughter.
Oh.
And then everybody just kept messing with my mind. They're like, it's a girl, and they would send me all these reels where people got the blood test were wrong and stuff. So we had it confirmed it's a boy, and I'm so excited. I love my boys; they're amazing.
Yeah.
So so that's the news.
That's the news. We're both moving.
Yes,
Still in the same cities, but we're moving houses. Yeah. So my kids are so excited because they get a little bit of an upgrade. They get more room, and which means, we get to go buy. We just went and bought new beds.
Yeah.
I forgot how much those things cost.
Oh, gosh.
But it's fun. It's great. We're excited.
So awesome.
Yeah. It's good.
Yeah.
You guys are moving?
We're moving. We think we know where we're moving, but we're still in the season of just like, God, what are you gonna do? Yeah. But we basically have until Monday to I think I've shared our story on here.
Maybe.
I think I did.
We have a couple options.
Yeah, we have a couple options. So we actually were building our home for ourselves, and then God asked us to put on the market. So that's been on the market, and we're supposed to have a showing today. That kind of didn't happen. But we have until Monday because we did have quite a few showings. So it's like you just never know. You never know what God is going to do. He can be like last minute, here's an offer. But we're going to be moving next week too. Yeah. And if we get to move into our house, then we'll be kind of
We're
neighbors.
so close.
Yeah.
So close.
Which my kids still don't know that. They still don't
Yeah,
know.
my kids do, so they've been praying. So I'm sorry if that has anything to do with you getting offers.
Oh my gosh.
Sorry about that.
Yeah. It's okay.
So
So yeah, those kind of are the updates.
yeah.
And then
So
there's
great.
life.
And there's life.
So
Yeah, it's been great. I was kidding, but also not kidding that we'll have to get on here another time and talk about what I do
yes.
with sex
Absolutely.
trafficking. So that should be fun.
Mhm.
But another podcast for sure.
Yeah. Yeah, I hear a lot of stories and it's mind blowing.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So
Yeah.
so what do we want to talk about?
Well-
what do we want to talk about?
Oh, what do I want to talk about? I mean, I think just one thing God's been talking to me a lot about is finding the joy.
Mm-hmm.
Finding the joy in the times when you don't want to, or maybe you know.
Mm-hmm.
I think we kind of talked separately, not on here, but we kind of talked about what it looks like when, you know, you get this promise, you get this, you know,
Mm-hmm.
this blessing that God's given you, and then all of a sudden it feels like, wait a minute, where did it go?
Mm-hmm.
You know, like how am I supposed to get up on worship and sing these songs?
Yeah.
They're talking about how good He is, and yet I don't feel like He's that good to me right now. You know, and you know, I've been stuck in James 1,
Mm-hmm.
and James 1, verse 2 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow. For when your endurance is fully developed, you will be perfect and complete, needing nothing."
Mm-hmm.
But then it says, so that was like, wow, like you can grab so much from that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, okay, so when troubles come, it's actually an opportunity for great joy. Okay.
Yeah.
When your faith is, you know, being tested, your endurance has a chance to grow.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So let it grow, right? So you actually have to let it grow.
It's a choice.
It's a choice. And when it says you will be perfect and complete, what he's saying is mature, right?
Mm-hmm.
But then after that, it says, okay, but if you need wisdom, ask your
Mhm.
generous God and He will give it to
So
you.
good.
He will not rebuke you for asking. So that is saying, okay, all this sounds great, but when the time comes, if you're like, you know, where I was last week, actually it was this week, it was like 2 days ago, where I'm like, okay, I know what I'm supposed to do as a Christian, God, but right now I'm ready to take off my earrings and throw some punches.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's where I was. And I just said, okay, God, well, I told my husband, I told you.
Yeah, yeah.
And, you know, and my husband was like, you need to go to God. You need to go talk to Him. I said, well, I'm about, you know, about to make somebody meet Him here in a second. He's like,
Yeah.
go talk to Jesus, you know.
Yeah.
And so when it got to that point, it was like, okay, God, I have to ask you, because me right now, I actually don't know what good's coming from this. I actually, like, why would that even happen? Why would you let that happen?
Mm-hmm.
Like, that's where I was going. I was so mad.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you know what He did? It was the craziest thing. He actually gave me His heart for the person I was mad at.
Wow.
And all of a sudden I was like, oh my gosh, yeah, God, I'm actually so sad. I'm so sad for him,
Mm-hmm.
you know? And that's what He's saying. If you need wisdom, ask your generous God. That's
Mhm.
wisdom in the situation.
Yeah, it is. 100%.
So whatever you're going through, you know, He's not gonna be mad at you for asking Him.
Yeah.
It's like any, you know, you talked about this earlier with the
Mhm.
kids, right?
Yeah.
And then it says, but when you ask Him, be sure that your faith is in God alone.
Yes, that's so good.
Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind.
Yep.
That's the key to it all.
It is.
So if you go to God and you know, you ask Him, okay, I don't understand why, you know, I don't understand why we have to move all of a sudden. I don't understand. I don't understand why, This is happening with my kids. I don't understand why this person is saying this about us. You go to him with all these trials, and I don't feel happy.
Mhm.
I don't feel like, oh, okay, well, it says consider it great joy, so I'm just going to be happy all the time.
Mhm. Yeah.
That's not actually what it's saying, right?
Yeah. So the first thing that when I hear you reading that, my first thing is like trying to understand what is actually joy.
Mhm.
Is it a feeling?
Mhm.
Is it an emotion? Is it like what is true joy, right?
Yeah. Mhm.
And because if we just say that joy is just something we feel, it's just a
Mhm.
feeling, well, it's actually really hard
Yeah.
to follow any
Mhm.
of what it says in there, right? Like knowing from my personal experience, like in this last season, I mean,
Yeah.
it hasn't been a month. It's like in this last season of my life, I had to make a choice.
Yeah.
And it wasn't because what I was going through was like the best thing, on earth. No, it was
Yeah.
actually really hard. And so therefore I had to truly understand, God, what is joy? What is your joy? What does that look like? What does that feel like?
Mhm.
And the first thing that you have to do is you actually have to acknowledge that this sucks.
Yeah.
Like what I'm going through is
Mhm.
not fun.
Mhm.
I don't like it. You have to acknowledge what it is that you're feeling.
Yeah.
Because that's the only way that God will work with you. Because if you're just gonna say, if you're just gonna read that and just be like, oh, I should feel joy. So I'm so happy, and you're gonna
Right.
put a slap on a fake smile
Yeah.
and say that that's joy. That's actually not what it's talking about.
Mhm.
But then I feel like to experience joy, you have to do all the rest of the things,
Right.
So like, I know in my case, I had to rely on God's wisdom.
Mhm.
I couldn't rely on my own wisdom. I couldn't rely on my friend's wisdom. I couldn't rely on, what the world tells me I should do. I had to actually go to God and ask him, like, what do you want me to do in this situation?
It's good.
That's the only way. And so I feel like when you take all the right steps, and sometimes when God tells you to do something, it's the complete opposite of what you want to do, too.
Right. And that's why I love how it says, but when you ask him, be sure your faith is in God alone.
Exactly.
Yeah. It's not in what you want.
Yeah.
It's not in, okay, I'm going to have some faith in you, God, but more faith in me.
Yes.
It's not going to have some faith in you, God, but more faith in what social media says, what it looks like from the outside. No. Let's get this straight.
Yeah.
God is saying when you go to him, have all your faith in him.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's just crazy because I mean, that's awesome, but it says, do not waver for a person with divided loyalty. So if you're a person who you're like, God, I want your wisdom in the situation. It could be with your kids, it could be in your marriage, it could be in your job, like it could be anything.
Mhm.
You're asking God for wisdom, and he tells you exactly what to do, but you want to use a little bit of God's wisdom
Mhm.
and a little bit of your wisdom.
Mhm.
Well, your loyalty is divided right there.
Yeah.
And so when that happens, it says that when loyalty is divided, is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Like,
Yeah. How unsettling is that?
yeah,
That's when you get anxiety, stress,
exactly.
all the things, which is,
Yes.
opposite of joy,
Yeah.
right? So that's the goal. Our life should
Mhm.
look like we have great joy.
Yeah.
And he's laying out all the things to get there,
Yeah. Mhm.
right? So cool.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, I feel like this applies to so many different things. This is really good. Because I feel like, sometimes it could be small things that we're going through,
Mhm.
but sometimes it could be big things, like life altering things,
Yeah.
And so I just know that if you are not going to take those steps to actually deal with what's happening in your life, but you're
Yeah.
just gonna, because you have one of two options, right?
Mhm.
You have a choice to either harbor everything
Mhm.
and get cold
Mhm.
and just shut everything out, or you can run from it.
Yeah.
Right. And so, like, when you're going through things in life, what is it that you're doing with it? Or you can also just be the person who, you go and you tell somebody, and that's it.
Yeah, I'll never forget a few years ago, we were walking through probably I would say, as a Christian, for sure, the hardest season of our life.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember when we were sitting there and I felt it, like I felt it come in. And I remember God saying, so prior to that, years ago when I was young, I had that same feeling. And my decision then was, okay, fine. Then I'm just going to, put walls up around my whole heart and everybody else. And I'm just going to live my life.
Yeah.
Screw you, screw you, screw you. Like that was how I was living. And I lived that way for so long that when I started to when I started to surrender my life to God, it took time because I had to break down wall by wall.
Yeah.
I had to break down, I went from just being super cold to like, okay, God, I have to let you in, And so a few years ago, we were sitting in the same position. And I remember it was almost as if I had an out of body thing, because I remember sitting there, but I just remember it was as if it was just me and Jesus.
Yeah.
And he said, you have a choice to make right now. You can either freeze up, let your heart freeze and be cold, put your walls up. And he said, and I'll walk you through it again. I'll walk you through healing again. So you can do that. Or you can feel the pain of what you're going through and let me walk you through it.
Wow.
And I remember sitting there and all of a sudden I just started crying, like bawling. And I said, okay, I'm going to trust you.
Yes.
And I'm not kidding it was like every minute of the day, I was like, okay, God, this is what I want to do. You have to tell me how I need to respond to this. Tell me how you want us to walk this out. And you know what's crazy is the enemy tried so hard. I remember when we were going through this, I remember the enemy trying so hard to have me point my finger. It was like, it's like, well, you have to point your finger at somebody.
Wow.
Who are you going to point your finger at?
Wow.
And every day, and I haven't really thought about this right now, but I remember I would wake up and it was like, okay, whose fault is it today?
Wow.
And it was like, and I would have these thoughts of the craziest thing though is that I can remember, I don't ever remember pointing my finger at my husband. Because I remember I knew something, God gave me this crazy grace of knowing that in order to get through this, I could not point my finger at him.
Wow.
And so it was like, okay, no matter what, we were doing this together, which is crazy. It was crazy cool.
Wow.
And that's how we got through it. But I remember just it would change it was and then I'd be like, no. And God would say, we're not pointing our finger. You can't point your finger at yourself. You can't point your finger at that person. It's not that person, it's the enemy. If you have any finger to point, it's him. And then I would just cry again,
Yeah. No,
but that was the thing, it was like I had to face it.
Yeah, you said two things that are so so good. So first is the trust. You have to trust God that He's for you, that He's not He's not asking you to be vulnerable, to be open because He wants you to be hurt.
Yeah.
That is everything. Because if you can't trust that God is for you, how are you going to allow Him to take the walls down, right? And the second thing that you said is, if you are the person who's you feel like you're walking around the same mountain and you're like, why isn't anything changing? Well, He said something. It's a choice. You have to make a choice. And God will honor your choice. He will walk you through the healing all over again if He has to. But do you want that? This can be think about this can be in your marriage. This can be with your children. This can be personal healing. This can be unforgiveness. This can be so many different things. Are you making a choice to go through it all over again?
Yeah, it's good.
Because God will honor you and He will walk with you. And if He has to, He'll do it 100 times. But do you want that?
Right.
Because it's actually holding you back. So
Yeah.
good.
Which, I mean, it goes back to counting it as joy.
Yeah.
Finding the joy, because joy, like we said earlier, it isn't the
Mhm.
feeling of being happy all the time.
Yeah.
Joy is actually the hope in seeing, okay, I actually believe
good.
that over this
Mhm.
is going to be good. It's going to be better.
Mhm.
And that's what I remember in that season, it was like, I couldn't even see, like, to me in that season, you guys, it was like the worst thing in the world. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Which now looking back, I'm like, okay, it really wasn't that big of a deal.
But it's because you overcame it.
Right. But
Yeah.
in the moment, it was like, nobody knows how I'm feeling. I remember literally going home and being like, we're packing our bags and we're running away. Like,
Wow.
we're going to move away. And, my husband again was
Mhm.
like, no, we're not. we're going to stay and we're going to face it. And we're going to
Yeah.
get through it. And I'm like, I don't know how, I
Yeah.
don't know how we're going to get through it. But that's the joy. It's like, okay, I don't actually know how, but God, I trust
Mhm.
that over there, in about 2 years,
Mhm.
year and a half, it's going to be better. And now being on the other side of it, I'm like, thank you, Jesus.
Yeah.
I look back and I'm so thankful that he's brought us to where we
Yeah.
are.
That's so good.
Yeah.
Yeah. And just like just for a second, just to sit and think, like, what if you chose to just be like, no, I'm not getting over this?
Yeah.
Like, what would your life actually look like?
Yeah. Well, the thing is when I chose that, 17 years ago, I was pregnant with
Okay.
my first baby.
Mhm.
If I were to have chosen that 3-4 years ago, I would have 5 little ones that would have felt
Wow.
the repercussions of that.
Wow.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So our choices matter
that's right.
because it doesn't just affect us.
Mhm.
I mean, even walking through that whole season affected my kids,
Wow.
right? But
Yeah.
because I knew, okay, I can trust God,
Mhm.
they knew
Mhm.
they could go to Him.
Yeah.
They knew, okay, wait a minute, we don't actually have to hate people
Mhm.
just because we're walking through this. And yeah, you know what?
That's so
Like
good.
sometimes they did, like there were days that were harder for sure.
Mhm.
I mean, I remember going to like events after that, and we would walk into the place, and normally where it'd be like, you have 30 people there and
Mhm.
20 people would come and run to my kids. All of a sudden they forgot who they were,
Wow.
and
It's
so I
hard.
remember talking to my kids on our way to the place and be like, hey, just so you know, if this happens, it's okay.
Mhm.
It doesn't define who we are. Do we
Mhm.
still love Jesus? Yes. Are we still going to be kind? Yes.
Mhm.
And sure enough, we get to the place and it happens. All of a sudden, all these people that used to go to our house every single week didn't say a word.
Wow.
And I remember one specific time, one of my girls gets in the car and she starts crying. She's like, I don't get it. I'm like, you know what though? Here's the thing is we're not gonna get it.
Mhm.
I said, and we're still gonna love them because we don't fight flesh.
Mhm.
It's a spiritual battle.
Yeah.
Right? So we can't point the finger and blame.
Mhm. Exactly.
So that's where I think the hardest thing when it comes to trials and when it comes
Mhm.
to coming against, when you find yourself, whether it's a season, whether it's a cycle, whether it's
Mhm.
just something that happens that you have no control over. I think the biggest obstacle that the enemy wants to do is point the finger to the person.
Yeah.
Make you
Mhm.
believe.
Yeah.
If it can make you believe it's this one person that they, because then we start getting like, I can't believe this one person literally, like,
Mhm.
as if they think about you 24/7. They
Yeah.
don't.
Exactly.
Newsflash.
Yeah.
They don't. But we start thinking,
Yeah.
and then we start building all this whole belief system
Mhm.
over this one thought.
Yeah.
So I think about if I were to have gone into the hole and just let everything go cold and screw this person, screw that person, blah, blah, blah,
Mhm.
I'm so mad at the world, screw church. If I were to do that, I just think, man, imagine how my kids would be right now. They'd be living that life,
Yeah.
you know?
Can you imagine?
No.
And that's the goal of the enemy.
Right.
Like that's not he doesn't only come after you.
Mhm.
He comes after your seed,
Mhm.
which is your children.
Yeah.
So wow. Wow.
Yeah.
That's really good. It just makes me think of, the whole pointing finger even,
Mhm.
I think like just hearing, just different stories around, like even, our personal story, in their marriage. That's the whole goal of the enemy.
Mhm.
If he can get you to point your finger at your spouse
Yeah.
and say it's your fault, you did this, like he has succeeded. Like that's the whole goal. And so I don't know, I just really feel like, just encouraging you, because I mean, it's so sad to me when I hear stories of families that are like falling apart,
Mhm.
or they did fall apart, they didn't make it. And I'm just like thinking, man, if only,
Mhm.
if only they chose to not fight against each other, but fight for each other. And of course, there's different situations. Like,
Right.
we're talking right now about things that you can fix, like
Right.
that you can run to God and He can give you the wisdom,
Mhm.
because it takes two,
Mhm.
But I don't know why. That's just something that I'm thinking about, just because we've walked through a season of that. And I know that the enemy's after the families.
Mhm.
He wants to destroy, he wants to bring division, he
Yeah.
wants to bring death, he wants to steal everything that he can,
Mhm.
because it just makes me think, like, if he can break up a family,
Yeah.
like in our case, can you, like, if my marriage was broken up, it's 7 people affected.
Yeah.
It's not just 2,
Right.
And so I'm just feeling like, if that's you, like if you are in a season where, maybe your marriage maybe you're struggling in some area. I am telling you,
Mhm.
it's hard. Marriage is hard, because marriage is, you love each other and you want this to work, and it's personal, and it hurts when it comes like when it's that personal, right? But I'm telling you that when you can trust in God's wisdom,
Yeah.
when you can seek His wisdom and His counsel above anybody else's,
Mhm.
I am telling you that He will give you the right steps.
Yeah.
And of course, getting yourself around people that can actually be there with you,
Yeah.
pray with you, like, don't look for people who you can vent to. That's the worst thing you can do.
And the Bible says to know people by the fruit in their life.
Yes.
So if you go to somebody that doesn't have an amazing marriage,
Not the people to share with.
probably not the right
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
I just think like, I mean, we had a situation with one of my children a couple weeks ago,
Mhm.
and I didn't go to people that don't have children, right? I went to moms. I had a few moms that I reached out to that I'm like, hey, prayer,
Yeah.
because I know, well, one, I know that they're trusting, but two, I know that any wisdom that they give me
Yeah.
is going to be from experience,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah, that's good.
You don't want somebody that's just going to be on your side when you're
Mhm.
in that kind of a situation. And it could be, if it is with your husband or your wife,
Yeah.
you don't want that kind of situation to be like, I just need someone to agree with me.
Mhm.
That's, if that's what you're looking for, then that's what you're going to get.
Yeah.
Don't expect fruit from it.
No, 100%. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Anyways,
that's good stuff.
good stuff. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, this is honestly like, it's applicable to
So many different areas.
so many different areas in your life,
Yeah.
And I do feel like that's the one thing that the enemy tries to steal from us is
Mhm.
joy.
Oh, yeah.
Because I mean, he knows if he can get you to be just grumpy,
Mhm.
nasty to your
Oh, yeah.
family, to, like, it's not gonna build nothing up. It's only gonna tear down even more. So
Look something up.
yeah.
You keep talking.
I'm trying to think. I was gonna say something and I spaced. I just added the start.
No, it's fine. Okay, joy. Here's what it is.
Oh, there you go.
The Greek translation of the word joy actually means grace. Do you know that?
I did not know that.
Joy is rooted in grace.
Wow.
Yeah.
And what does grace mean? Grace?
It's God's supernatural empowerment.
Yes.
So when you think about it, when he's saying, let's go back to this. I forgot I did the whole sermon on this one too. Just on the word joy. So dear brothers and sisters, when troubles of any kind come your way, okay, so any kind,
Yeah.
consider it an opportunity for great joy, for great grace,
Wow.
for great supernatural empowerment that God will actually get you through it, not you. Really is what it's saying.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's so good. That is so good.
So we'll end up by saying this. If you are going through troubles
Yeah.
of any kind, small or big,
Mm-hmm.
just know that you can get through it. It's an
Yeah.
opportunity. Opportunity is meaning it's a choice. It's an opportunity for you to run to God and experience true joy. Experience his grace
Yeah.
in whatever situation you're in.